So let's just start and jump right in with the indirect closing techniques. I think that most people think that closing is very complicated and it's very unclear what they can do to actually become a better sales closer. But the reality is that closing should actually be the easiest step of the sales process. I personally believe if you do all of the other stuff correctly, all of the stuff before it's time to close, many deals should actually close on their own, close themselves. So we talked about in the Smart Sales System, creating a consultative selling sales message and getting away from product selling, where product selling is what actually most salespeople do, where they go out, they talk about the company they work for. This is what I sell. Do you need what I sell? And they're trying to, every prospect they talk to, they try to get them to become a customer. And we talked about getting away from that and using a more consultative selling sales message, which focuses more on how you can help your prospects and your customers, the pain points that you can help make go away, asking good questions to see if prospects have the pain points that you can help with. And then when you talk about your product, focus on how you're different, focus on how your company is innovative and different in any ways, and focus on sharing customer examples, name drop examples. And by doing those things, that will make closing easier. How does that work? Well, if you focus on more the value that you have to offer instead of just talking about your product, you will build more interest. An example that I've used in the past is trying to sell someone on joining a gym. And the product selling salesperson will focus more on, this is the facility, these are our weights, these are our treadmills, we have a lap pool. That's talking about the product. But the consultative salesperson will talk more about improvements, such as transforming your life, losing weight, living longer, sleeping better, getting better relationships, improving your career. That's value. Those are benefits. Those are improvements. Think about if you shift in that direction and then focus on pain points, such as having aches and pains and having high medical bills and going to the doctor and not having a good personal relationships. Those are pain points. And so think about if you focus more on all of that, how much it will be easier to close instead of just talking about treadmills and lap pool and yoga classes. So that's how having a better sales message can make closing easier and can make deals close themselves. In a previous training module, we talked about qualifying prospects by asking good questions and screening good prospects from bad. While that's not closing, asking questions to determine how good or bad a prospect is really has nothing to do with closing. That small step, if you incorporate that step, that is going to make closing tremendously easier, because the times where you find closing to be difficult and that you're really struggling to get a prospect to agree to move forward, a lot of those situations are where you're dealing with a prospect that doesn't fit well and has a low probability of purchasing from you. Either A, they don't need it, either B, they can't afford it, C, they don't have the authority to make the decision or whatnot. Being a good qualifier of prospects and screening out those prospects, what that leads to is that leads to you having a better pipeline of good quality prospects. And when you do that, closing those good quality prospects will be easier. So being a better qualifier will make you a better closer. Most of the time when you're not able to close a prospect, at that exact moment, you are going to be facing some sort of objection. So you're trying to get the prospect to purchase or to move forward, and they're saying something like, I'm not interested, we don't need that, we're locked into an agreement, it's too difficult, it's too expensive, it's too complicated. Those are all objections. And if by improving your ability to be prepared for the objections that you can anticipate and having good responses that either overcome those or get around those, will improve your ability to close. Because for one thing, either when you get that objection, you resolve it and then get the prospect to buy, or what could happen is you don't get the prospect to buy right then, but you get around the objection and you keep the conversation going. You basically stay alive, and that gives you a second opportunity to close. So you get around the objection, keep interacting and talking with the prospect, and then you can circle back to try to close again. That objection response and ability to handle objections kept you alive, and that can improve your ability to close by giving you more close attempts, basically. People buy from people that they like, and having more rapport with prospects will make closing easier. Now, a lot of what we've talked about in the Smart Sales System will help you with rapport. For example, if you simply shift from being a product selling, product pushing salesperson and change more to become consultative salesperson, you will create more rapport. Not only will your prospects respect you more, and that will naturally create more rapport, but you will do less damage to rapport. When you're a product pusher, you damage rapport. So it's like you're you're kind of doing two things at once. Not only are you decreasing the damage that you make, but you also increase more positive, genuine rapport. And that will help you to become better engaged with prospects and move deals through the sales process and will ultimately make closing easier. One way to increase more rapport or not damage rapport is to decrease how much you sound like a product pushing salesperson, and the consultative selling sales message will help you with that. We've talked a lot about sales process in the smart sales system, and that will help you to be a better closer, because when you're a product selling salesperson, all you're trying to do every time you talk to a prospect is you try to sell the product, right? Even if you have many steps to go through, you're always validating, this is what I sell. Do you need what I sell? Can I talk to you about, what I sell? When you're focused in that direction, closing can be difficult because you're just pushing the product and the prospect might not even know why they need what you sell or why they should want it. And when you get away from that and you keep in mind that there are many steps between the first time you're talking with a prospect and them actually purchasing from you. For example, at some point you need to talk to the prospect in terms of having a real conversation, a meeting, and then that can progress to some sort of explanation. And then at some point after that is the purchase. If you focus more on the process you're trying to take a prospect through and shift from always trying to sell the product to trying to sell the meeting or trying to sell the next step, that can make closing easier, because you, instead of trying to focus on the ultimate close, which can be challenging, you're focusing on selling the next step. Not only is that more logical, but it's easier to sell the meeting than it is to sell the product. And just a quick example of how that works. Well, if a prospect says, I'm not interested, then if you're trying to sell the product and the purchase, then you're focused on trying to make the prospect interested in terms of justifying the reason to talk and the reason to meet. But if you really understand and stay crystal clear on the process you're trying to take a prospect through, it doesn't matter that they're not interested, because you're not trying to sell the product or the purchase, you're trying to sell the meeting. So the fact that the prospect is not interested or doesn't have budget or is locked in a contract or can't make any changes right now doesn't really matter, because you're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to open up the dialogue between you and the prospect so that when they get ready to make a change, they can know who you are and they can keep you in mind, and then you can pick back up at that point. And so when you focus on selling that, it's an easier close. So selling the meeting instead of the product can make closing easier.